Hey, hello guys. Welcome to week 4 multimedia discussion for the class MPA 510. My name is Yahir Caballero, and today we will be discussing. So we will be discussing the articles from Waldo, McGregor, and Lindblom, or Lindblom. Um, yeah. Furthermore, with these articles, we're striving for death of theory. We'll be addressing, or I'll be addressing the interesting information that I gathered from reading these articles, and also I'll be providing examples of each concept and providing my own insight as well. All right, so the first article that we are discussing in this presentation, and the first writer we are discussing is Dwight Waldo, and the book slash article is called "The Administrative State Revisited." As we know, this this is this article is building upon Dwight Waldo's earlier book in 1948, which was called The Administrative State. And in both books, pretty much the main talking point was discussing the complexities that came with public administration, the administrative state, the evolving relationship between government and public, as well as bureaucracy. Um, so yeah, one of the main talking points, one of the main aspects of both books was pretty much how public administration shouldn't just be focusing on how to be as effective as possible, but rather like really involve the public and be transparent with the public, citizen participation. So ultimately, focus on showing the democratic values, right? So I think we can see that in today's modern society as well. A lot of the focus is on transparency and really keeping the public together and keeping them on side as well. So I think it was a pretty interesting read. Pretty interesting topics as well discussed by Waldo. Alright, so the next article that we are discussing and the next writer we are discussing is The Human Side of Enterprise, written by Douglas McGregor. And yeah, so the main topic of this article and what he's most famous for is presenting theory X and theory Y. Um, yeah, so theory X represents a more pessimistic view of humans and human nature, especially in the working environment. They assume that many people just dislike work, they lack the ambition, and then in the working environment, they must be controlled, they must be told what to do, they must be supervised. So, and as a result, they think that employees should be controlled and directed to the objective, right? And so, an example of theory X in effect would have to be when a manager or a company uses strict rules or strict supervision, and they use things such as like a pay rise or just rewards in general to motivate these employees. But McGregor made it clear that he believes theory Y is much more realistic and much more what is actually happening on in society. Theory Y reflects more of an optimistic view of human nature. It is under the assumption that people like to work, they're self-motivated. They take pride in what they achieve in work. Like he said on page 167, they are dynamic rather than static. They indicate the possibility of human growth and development. They stress the necessity for selective adaptation rather than for a single absolute form of control. So yeah, as you can tell, theory Y is much more like will much more likely foster a working environment and an atmosphere of trust, and ultimately theory-wide can prove to be more of an effective approach if you want a more productive and innovative workplace. And he believes that it will ultimately just benefit everyone altogether. It will benefit the employee creativity. It won't just limit them. So yeah. All right. So the last article for this week's presentation is written by Charles Lindblom, and he's the author of the article "The Science of Muddling Through." Essentially, in this article, Lindblom proposes a model which is characterized by the phrase muddling through, and is essentially proposing for policymakers, lawmakers, rulemakers to, instead of making drastic and large scale changes in systems or anything in those regards, it's better to make small adjustments to existing policies. So essentially, it's proposing a trial and error process, adjusting policies while after you receive some feedback, rather than just making a wholesale change time after time, not knowing really what works and what doesn't. So yeah, like I said, instead of making wholesale changes, they're making updates little by little, seeing what sticks. So for example, instead of making wholesale changes, you can just expand uh, companies, introduce new measures, because the other way of change is kind of, you can argue, unrealistic, like Lindblom has stated, because these rule makers can't really predict everything, can't really predict how society will take all these changes, and how, if all these changes work, right? Some might not work, some might will. So yeah. So yeah, that's it for this presentation. Uh, it's safe to say that it was pretty interesting readings once again for this week. So yeah, thank you for your time, and yeah, thank you.